Hi, welcome. I'm Marissa, and today I'm going to be discussing a topic that is lesser known in the manifestation process, in the process of actually aligning and attaining the things that we want in life. This is something that I call the back filter, which I'll be explaining in a little bit here. And the beauty and the value of this is that by recognizing it and working with this tool, with this concept, we can actually remove blocks and barriers that are slowing down the process of aligning with what we truly want to align with in life. So many of us are already familiar with the concept of the front-facing filter. In other words, it's how we view reality, how we view life, how we perceive the world. Are we wearing rose-colored glasses? Are we wearing muddy glasses, dark shades? How are we going around looking at life? Because a lot of us are already very familiar with the concept that how you perceive reality is how you receive reality. So, in other words, if I'm going around like looking for a bad time, I'm going to find a bad time. If I'm going around thinking that the world is a great place, I am more likely to encounter all kinds of experiences that reinforce that belief. So, we are often focused on what is in front of us. And this makes sense because our eyes are in front of us. They only see in front of us, they don't see behind us. We're focused on our future because the past had already happened. It's gone, it's done with. We don't need to worry about that anymore. But the future, oh my God, like that's the whole rest of our life. So that's what we're focused on. That's where our attention is going. We are constantly focused on our future and what comes next and ensuring our survival in a sense. So we want to make sure that we're financially stable, that we're happy, that we have all the things that we want to have in life. So this is like where our mind goes to. Whether it's realistic or not, this is how the mind often works. So we all know how to look forward, that's a given. But what about our back filter? How are we defining the past? The past could include our childhood, our teens, our young adult life, and so on. So one night recently, after I was done showering, I was in the bathroom because if you know me, that's where a lot of my thoughts come in, my thoughts about life. And I was thinking about this topic, and it really hit me when I was thinking about myself as a probation officer. It was a career that I had for 10 years. So for 10 years, I was in different units. I was surrounded by different people. I was working full time. So you can imagine that there was a lot that happened during that 10-year career. And I realized that I was perhaps not defining it in the highest light or in the best way that I could. What I mean by that is this. I think it's easy to either just label something as positive or as negative when in fact there's a whole range. And often we have experiences that are both positive and both negative, and then that means that they're filled with everything in the middle, everything in between. So I was really thinking about this, and I realized that on one hand, I could think about the heavy workload and the constant fires that I had to put out, and I could feel weighed down by that. Or on the other hand, I could think about all the fun times I had with my coworkers and all the times I enjoyed myself and all the skills I learned and developed while I was working as a probation officer. So there was no one correct way to define it. So there's no one truth. It's all just a filter, just a label, a way that I choose to define it, to define my past experiences. If anybody listens to the channel Bashar, you know that he often says that there is no built-in meaning in anything. We are the ones that are assigning the meaning to all of our experiences. So it's kind of like this. Say there was 100 people and they were all asked, this group of 100 people were asked, is a particular situation negative or positive? This is hypothetical. So say they were given this situation and 95 of them said that it was a negative situation. And 5 people saw it as a positive situation. So what is the answer then? What is the correct answer? Is it negative or is it positive? My point with this is that there is often not a set negative or positive. We want to label things that way because our mind likes to do that. Oh, I can label this as bad. I can label this as good. And so we can get caught in that trap because it's a way that our mind is doing its work. It's putting things in categories. But this doesn't help us if we get stuck in these categories and we can't get out of them. The point is that can we truly say something is for sure negative, that that's the truth, if a small percentage of people actually believe it's positive? Is there a built-in meaning or is there not a built-in meaning? Or are we just assigning the meaning ourselves? So I'd like to share a personal example from my own life. So many years ago, I experienced major depression, and it was a multi-year journey, something that was extremely difficult and challenging to go through. I often felt out of energy, and my energy was so low that sometimes I would feel like I literally could just blink. And when I opened my eyes again, I wouldn't be surprised if I was in another dimension. And I know this sounds strange to anyone who hasn't experienced it, but the point I'm making is like my energy level was so low that it almost felt like I wasn't here sometimes. While I was going through depression, I often felt very low. I would have just all kinds of emotions. It was like a roller coaster. I could feel very intensely low, then it would come back up, it would go down. It was just very challenging emotionally. And I frequently had thoughts that I didn't necessarily even want to be existing anymore. That was like a common thought for a while when I was going through depression. It wasn't like I was going to hurt myself in any way, but I frequently found myself thinking, what if I just go to sleep tonight and I don't wake up tomorrow? Like, what if God just chooses to take me out of this reality? And I couldn't feel joy. There was no feeling that emotion because it was just too high and I couldn't access it. I couldn't reach it. And as somebody who had felt joy, obviously, many times throughout their life, I knew what it was, but I also knew that it was impossible for me to reach while I was depressed because it's such a low state and you can't just come out of it. You can't just be like, oh, you can't hear a piece of information and be like, oh yeah, I'm not depressed anymore. It's like your whole being, your whole energy field is wrapped under this heavy blanket that it can't get out of even if it wants to. So my question to you is, hearing that, is depression a negative experience or a positive experience? So there might be people who would only define depression as being bad or as being a negative experience, and that's how I felt when I was going through it. But that was also the exact thinking that kept me stuck in it and unable to move forward, unable to move out of it. Now, what if I told you a different version of how I experienced depression, which is also true? Experiencing depression caused me to look inward and to become very honest with myself and more clear about what I wanted out of life. I went on my first solo trip to Bali and I had the best time exploring and seeing this new country, and furthermore, doing it all by myself. There is an authenticity that comes from reaching your rock bottom and saying, screw it, I'm going to do what I want to do and I'm going to live how I want to live. When I had depression, I had a spiritual awakening. It caused me to have a spiritual awakening and to deepen my spirituality, and I began to view life differently in a way that I would not have been able to view it before having depression, before having that kind of a dark night of the soul, if you will. I began to see how the world that I was living in was more than just the 3D reality where things happen and we react to them as best as we can. I started to see how we are able to influence reality, how there are patterns occurring in our life, energetic patterns. And if we can work with those patterns, we can unwind them, we can undo them, and stop certain undesirable situations from repeating in our life. Having depression taught me how to work with my emotions in a better way, in a more skillful way, so I didn't have to keep riding that emotional roller coaster of constant ups and downs. I developed tools so that when I was feeling the downward momentum, I could stop it there and I could rise back up. And these tools that I developed through having depression, that I was forced to develop, are tools that I continue to use today and tools that I will continue to use for the rest of my life. They will literally continue to benefit me for the rest of my life. So now, if you only heard the second version of how I experienced depression, what would be your take on it? What would be your opinion? Does it sound like it could be a positive experience? So my point is that we are the ones that are assigning the meaning to our past experiences. Nobody else is assigning them. When we think of something as good or bad, or I didn't like this, or I did like that, it's not a universal given. It is the narrative and the definition that we chose to assign to it. And even just taking that responsibility and saying to ourselves, I chose to view it this way. I chose to assign this meaning to it. That can unlock a lot of energy right there. And it's precisely how we're defining our past experiences, our past life circumstances, etc., that are shaping our present and that are shaping our future. Because the definitions that we are giving, the labels that we are giving to these experiences that we think, oh, they're behind us, they're still shaping us because we're always thinking about them. How many times a day do you think about something that already happened to you, right? It could be experiences from the past week, from a job that we had several years ago. It could be past experiences from when we were in school or when we were a child and, saying to ourselves, I grew up this way, I grew up feeling this way, I grew up with these circumstances, this happened to me. So there is no right or wrong here. I simply want you to recognize how you are defining your past experiences and ultimately, therefore, how they are shaping you today, the person that you see yourself as and view yourself as today. So if it doesn't feel good anymore, if it isn't suiting the person that you are today or who you are envisioning yourself becoming, then start writing a new narrative. Since you are the one that assigned the story, you are the one that can write the new narrative. You can say how that experience affected you, what you drew from it, and how you're molding it and defining it in your life. So as another example from my own life, I could view myself as the child who struggled emotionally, who was very sensitive to the world, and seeing myself in that way heightens that, and it makes it a bigger deal and a bigger event than it even needs to be. And when I see myself that way, I begin to feel a certain way that I don't like. Because if I'm thinking of myself in my childhood as, oh, I was very sensitive, it was hard emotionally at times, and that just feels like a weight. It's bringing my energy down. It's bringing the person that I am right here in this moment in the present down. Literally, this is all energetics. It's an energetic thing. We are working with energy here. So I can also choose to view myself as the child who was always involved in sports. I played on lots of different sports teams. I was somebody who was always part of a team. I was very active. And when I choose to view myself in that way, I feel excited. I feel uplifted. My body feels energized. And like it literally feels energized now, thinking of that past version of me. So if I choose to bring that into the present, then wow, I'm this person who feels like they can do anything. I got this amazing energy and I show up to life with it. And we can all do this with the experiences that we've had. There's always a way to reframe something to abstract the value from it. So here's another example of how drawing things from the past into our future can either positively or negatively affect us. So I'm someone who's currently creating YouTube videos. I create blogs. I like to write, and I'm constantly learning new skills. And if I chose to view my last career as a probation officer in strictly a negative way and say, wow, that was really challenging, it was very stressful, I always had a lot of demanding work and things that I had to constantly figure out, etc., then that attitude, even if I'm just casually thinking about it from time to time, like, oh yeah, I used to do that, now I do this, I used to do that, now I do this. If I casually think about it that way, it's still this weight, it's this burden. And when I'm trying to learn new things or develop new skills, I'm just going to compound it and say, I've had a lot of hard things career wise, and now I'm doing hard things again. And then everything just feels so hard at this point. It's not helping me, it's actually just weighing me down. But if I choose to abstract the value from being a probation officer and all the things that I learned, all the skills, I could say, wow, I was constantly learning new skills. I was constantly challenged and overcame challenges. I learned how to be a much better writer through constant report writing. I learned how to read people. I learned how to build rapport. I learned a lot of valuable research and analytical and critical thinking skills. So there was all these positive things that I took away from that experience. And if I'm thinking about that and thinking about, wow, yeah, I did that, I learned that, I did that. So now when I'm showing up to do these new things that I'm learning by myself, because a lot of the skills I'm developing now is just self-taught. And at this point, if I'm considering all the things that I've done before that have been very helpful and useful in my last career, then it's propelling me forward. It's like this forward motion, this forward trajectory that, yeah, I can do that. I can do these things because I've done them before and I've overcome them. I've done things before that I didn't know how to do and I've learned them. And so it's like this more positive and uplifting way to look at it. So all of this is to say how we frame things that happened in our past are currently affecting our future. It's affecting what we're allowing in. It's affecting our current energy fields, our mood. There are so many things that are affected by what has happened in the past. And I'm not someone who likes to dwell on the past because it already happened, it's over and done with. All we have is the present moment. But as a human being, these past scenarios just keep coming into our mind, coming into our mind, and coming into our mind. And so we get to choose how we view them and the meaning that we're assigning them. And sometimes this takes practice. Sometimes a thought comes into our head and we have to reframe it, and it will come back later. And we have to reframe it, and maybe it comes back a week later and we reframe it again. So we're always in this process of reframing things, and that is totally okay. One very important thing that I want you to remember is that you do not want to get down on yourself or start talking negatively to yourself or question yourself, why was I doing this or that? When you start recognizing where you may have been framing something in a way that wasn't in a very positive light. So when you look back and you're like, wow, why did I assign that meaning? Or, wow, this has been affecting me for this long because I gave it that meaning. You do not want to get down on yourself, and you do not want to criticize yourself in any way, shape, or form. This is all just life. We're all constantly living and learning, and honestly, I just think that that is what life is anyways. We come here, we're put on this planet in this lifetime, and it's a planet of duality with the negative and the positive and everything in between. And we're just here to learn. We're here to constantly learn and constantly evolve. And that is one of the huge things that we're doing here. So if you learn something, then congratulations, because that's the whole point of it. So this is really the true magic here, is recognizing where something in our past that we've assigned a meaning to that we do not like and that is not working for us is now something that we can reframe in order to work for us. Because it's all just the meaning we assigned and what we choose to abstract from that situation. And reframing the past in a positive light, or simply abstracting the good qualities from an experience, allow us to move forward and to align and to create and to expand expand in a more positive way that isn't constricted by that past event, by the past circumstances. It's like the key that unlocks the door. So my question is, what can you do today, however slight or dramatic, that reframes just one thing from your past to work for you? How can you get that energy to work for you? So I want to empower you and remind you that you are the great architect, the great designer of your own life. And nobody else but you gets to decide or assign any sort of meaning to your life other than you. You are the one that gets to write the story. You get to choose what to take away, what to abstract from different situations. That is all your choice, because remember, there is no built-in meaning. We assign the meaning. So assign a meaning that works for you and that expands your energy and that allows you to move past and break through barriers that were really only perceived limitations in the mind anyways. They were not reality. Thank you for joining me today. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I will see you in the next video.